Some movies age like milk, others age like prophecy. These 1950s sci-fi films were made with practical effects, real sets, and Cold War paranoia, yet they still hit harder than modern green screen spectacles. No CGI safety nets, no reshoots, no test audiences softening the edges. Just visionary directors, committed actors, and ideas dangerous enough to get the FBI's attention. 70 years later, they remain untouchable. 15. The Day the Earth Stood Still. Robert Wise directed this 1951 alien invasion film where the alien comes in peace and humanity tries to kill him anyway. Michael Rennie's Klaatu learned to speak with absolute calm because Wise wanted him to sound like someone explaining obvious truths to children. The giant robot Gort was played by a 7'7" doorman in a rubber suit that nearly suffocated him. He could only wear it for 30 minutes before passing out. Patricia Neal's iconic Klaatu Barada Nikto line was phonetic nonsense that Edmund North wrote specifically so it couldn't be traced to any real language. The film's anti-military message got 20th Century Fox investigated by the House Un-American Activities Committee. Wise didn't care. He made a movie where humanity's violence was the real threat. 14. Forbidden Planet. IGM spent nearly $2 million in 1956 to create the first film entirely set on an alien world, with Robbie the Robot becoming more famous than any of the human actors. The electronic score by Lewis and Bebe Barron was created entirely with homemade circuits that destroyed themselves while recording. Every sound is a circuit dying. Walter Pidgeon based his Dr. Morbius on his own intellectual arrogance, making him sympathetic and monstrous simultaneously. Anne Francis's costumes were so revealing that the Catholic Legion of Decency demanded reshoots. They added fabric, but the sexuality remained. The id monster was animated by Disney artist Joshua Meador, who made it invisible except when attacking. The monster is Morbius's subconscious given form. Freudian horror disguised as space adventure. Still works. 13. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Don Siegel's 1956 paranoia masterpiece was shot in 19 days for $300,000, yet it predicted suburban conformity, McCarthyism, and the death of individuality better than any film since. Kevin McCarthy's famous highway ending, screaming "You're next," wasn't in the original script. The studio demanded a framing device to soften it, but McCarthy's genuine terror made the warning permanent. The pods were made from real organic materials that rotted under studio lights, creating an unbearable smell that made actors' discomfort authentic. Dana Winter stayed awake for 48 hours before filming her character's transformation to capture genuine exhaustion. Siegel never confirmed whether the pods represented communism or capitalism. Both sides claimed it as propaganda. That ambiguity is why it endures. 12. The Thing from Another World. Howard Hawks produced, Christian Nyby directed, and nobody agrees who actually called the shots on this 1951 Antarctic nightmare about a blood-drinking alien vegetable. James Arness played the Thing under makeup so heavy he couldn't see, navigating sets by following crew instructions shouted between takes. The film's overlapping dialogue, characters interrupting each other constantly, was Hawks' signature, making the scientists feel like real people panicking in real time. They filmed at the RKO Ice House with temperatures kept below freezing. The actor's visible breath is genuine cold. Kenneth Tobey's "Watch the Skies" ending became the template for every alien invasion warning since. John Carpenter remade it 30 years later, and somehow both versions are perfect. Different interpretations, identical paranoia. 11. War of the Worlds. George Pal spent $2 million making HG. Wells' Martian invasion feel inevitable in 1953, and the effects still shame modern blockbusters. The Martian war machines were designed by illustrator Chesley Bonestell to look organic and mechanical simultaneously. They float like living things. The strings were visible in dailies, so Pal invented a new support system using thin piano wire that film stock couldn't capture. Gene Barry and Anne Robinson's romance was real. They married after filming. The Martian heat ray death scenes used color filters and reverse photography. The church destruction scene genuinely upset religious groups until they saw the ending where bacteria saves us. Byron Haskin directed the mass panic scenes using actual Paramount contract players, not extras, because he wanted recognizable faces dying. Spielberg remade it. Cruise is bigger, this one's still better. 10. This Island Earth Universal spent $800,000 in 1955 creating the first science fiction film shot in Technicolor, and every frame looks like a pulp magazine cover come to life. Rex Reason and Faith Domergue play scientists recruited to help aliens save. Dying planet, not realizing they're the salvation. The Metaluna mutant, the bug-eyed creature, had a functioning brain visible under transparent dome. Douglas Shearer designed its sound by combining animal screams with electronic feedback. The flying saucer interiors were built full scale and actually lit by the panels seen on screen. No separate lighting rigs. Jeff Morrow's Exeter became Sci-Fi's first sympathetic alien, genuinely tragic in his planet's final moments. The mutant got more attention, but Exeter has more depth. The film asked whether saving your world justified enslaving others. Still asking. 9. The Incredible Shrinking Man. Jack Arnold directed Richard Matheson's 1957 existential nightmare about a man shrinking into nothingness, and it remains the most philosophical monster movie ever made. Grant Williams performed against oversized props that got progressively larger. The production built 5 separate house sets at increasing scales. The tarantula fight used a real spider, and Williams wearing protective gear while genuinely terrified. Arnold shot it like a monster movie because, to an inch-tall man, a spider is a monster. The basement flood scene nearly drowned Williams when the water tank malfunctioned. His acceptance speech at the film's end, embracing his merger with the infinite, was considered too heavy for Sci-Fi. Matheson refused to change it. Williams performed it in one take. It's still the greatest ending monologue in the genre. 8. It Came from Outer Space. Ray Bradbury wrote this 1953 story about aliens crash landing in the desert and needing humans to see them as they truly are. And Jack Arnold filmed it in 3D that still works today. Richard Carlson and Barbara Rush play the only 2 people who believe the aliens mean no harm. Everyone else wants them killed. The alien POV shots were achieved by distorting the lens with petroleum jelly and filming through prisms. The possessed humans move with jerky, unsettling gaits. Arnold told actors to move like your body doesn't quite fit. The finale, where the alien reveals its true form, was cut by Universal for being too abstract. Arnold restored it later. Bradbury wanted a story about fear of the unknown destroying communication. He got it. We still haven't learned. 7. Them. Giant ants from atomic testing terrorized the Southwest in this 1954 thriller that Warner Brothers shot in black and white because color made the ants look too fake. The ant puppets were 12 feet long, operated by internal crews of 3 people per ant. The operators nearly suffocated in the Los Angeles storm drain finale. James Whitmore's alcoholic cop was supposed to survive. Test audiences loved him so much that his death hit harder than the studio expected. They kept it. Edmund Gwen's scientist was based on Robert Oppenheimer, delivering doomsday warnings nobody wants to hear. The film's radiation message was clear. We did this to ourselves. The sound of the ants, that piercing shriek, was created by combining hawk cries with wind. Leonard Nimoy has an early role, and somehow you can tell it's him even without seeing his face clearly. 6. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Disney spent $9 million in 1954 bringing Jules Verne's submarine epic to life with practical effects that required actual engineering. The Nautilus was built full scale and actually functioned underwater for real submarine sequences. James Mason's Captain Nemo is cinema's greatest wounded genius. Elegant, brilliant, genocidal. Kirk Douglas did his own harness work for the giant squid battle, filmed in a tank during an artificial storm. The squid was full-scale and mechanical. Its tentacles malfunctioned constantly, actually injuring Douglas twice. Peter Lorre's character gets killed halfway through because Lorre demanded it. He hated the Disney-fied script changes and wanted out. The organ scene where Nemo plays Bach while destroying ships wasn't in Verna. Mason suggested it. It defines the character better than any dialogue could. 5. Godzilla Ishiro Honda's 1954 original wasn't a monster movie. It was a national trauma processed through genre filmmaking 9 years after Hiroshima. Gojira embodied nuclear horror in a rubber suit operated by Haruo Nakajima, who lost 20 pounds filming in the 200-degree costume. The Tokyo destruction scenes used meticulously detailed miniatures built by artists who'd survived the real firebombing. Their attention to burning architecture came from memory. Takashi Shimura's scientist creates a weapon that can kill Godzilla, then kills himself to ensure it dies with him. He won't give humanity another super weapon. American distributors cut 20 minutes, added Raymond Burr, removed most of the anti-nuclear messaging. The Japanese cut is still devastating. The American cut accidentally created a franchise. Honda wanted a warning. We made merchandise. 4. On the beach, Stanley Kramer convinced Gregory Peck, Ava Gardner, Fred Astaire, and Anthony Perkins to star in his 1959 film about humanity's final months after nuclear war renders Earth uninhabitable. Nobody survives. Nobody gets saved. Astaire took his only dramatic role in 20 years because the message was too important to decline. The film was shot in Melbourne, Australia, the last place facing the approaching radiation cloud. Kramer kept the tone subdued. No hysteria, just people quietly facing extinction. Peck's submarine commander orders his crew home to die with their families. Gardner's alcoholic accepts there's no point in sobriety now. The final scene shows empty Melbourne streets with a revival banner reading, "There is still time, brother." Kramer meant it as humanity's last warning. We didn't listen. 3. The Fly Kurt Neumann directed Vincent Price in this 1958 body horror film that still makes people uncomfortable with its practical effects. The fly-headed Price was achieved with a large-scale fly head worn by Price for hours under hot lights. David Hedison played the opposite, human body, fly head, with his actual arm crushed in a mechanical press for the climax. The "Help Me" sequence with the tiny fly-headed human caught in a web was achieved with puppetry and extreme close-ups. Test audiences screamed. Herbert Marshall's scientist character has to kill his own brother to end the nightmare. Price's character realizes her husband died saving her from himself. Patricia Owens performed the entire flashback story in long takes to maintain emotional continuity. Neumann died before release. The film became his eulogy, a horror story about transformation you can't reverse. 2. Journey to the Center of the Earth. Henry Levin sent James Mason, Pat Boone, and Arlene Dahl down a soundstage volcano in 1959 with practically built caverns and real iguanas with glued-on fins playing dinosaurs. The descent sequences were filmed in Carlsbad Caverns. The cast actually went underground. Mason based his Professor Lindenbrook on every arrogant academic he'd ever met, making him brilliantly insufferable. The underground ocean was a tank on the Fox backlot where Dahl nearly drowned when her costume got caught. The mushroom forest used real oversized props that took 3 months to build. Thayer David's villain dies in a magnetic storm. They achieved the effect by actually electrifying the set while David wore protective gear. Bernard Herrmann's score made geological exploration sound like epic adventure. The film trusts Verna's vision completely. No modernizing, no apologies. Just pure exploration where the journey matters more than arriving. 1. The Time Machine. George Pal directed H.G. Wells' 1960 masterpiece, technically 1960 but filmed entirely in 1959, about a Victorian inventor discovering humanity's grim future. Rod Taylor's time traveler ages through world wars while staying still, watching London destroyed repeatedly. The time machine itself was a functioning prop with real moving parts designed by Bill Ferrari. It still exists, displayed in museums. The Morlocks, subterranean cannibals, were played by dancers in suits that glowed under black light. Their underground lair was filmed in actual caves with minimal lighting. Yvette Mimieux's Weena represents humanity bred into beautiful livestock. Alan Young's shopkeeper friend ages 90 years in minutes. The makeup transitions were achieved practically, progressively applied between takes. The final question: which 3 books would you take to rebuild civilization? Wells provided no answer. Pal filmed Taylor's empty library chair and made the absence the answer. Some questions survived their century. These films understood something modern blockbusters forgot. Practical effects force creativity, Cold War terror creates urgency, and treating audiences like adults builds films that last. If you want more classics that modern films can't touch, subscribe. Which one could be remade without ruining? Probably none.